I'll expand. Part 1. First contact into a more detailed 900-word story with simple language, human-centric focus, and natural tone while avoiding common names. Here's the expanded version. The sleek metal hull of the Galactic Council ship gleamed against the darkness of space as it slowed to a halt just beyond Earth's moon. Inside the vessel, tall figures with blue-tinted skin moved efficiently across the bridge, their six-fingered hands dancing over control panels covered in symbols no human had ever seen. Captain Kim leaned forward in his command chair, his silver eyes narrowing as he studied the blue-green planet displayed on the main view screen. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. Oceans, clouds, and landmasses creating a marbled appearance that might have been beautiful if Kim had any appreciation for such things. "Magnify Sector 3, he ordered, his voice carrying the characteristic musical tone of his species. The image shifted to show North America, zooming in further until cities became visible. "Such a primitive world," Kim remarked, unable to hide the contempt in his voice. "Look at their energy generation facilities, still burning fossil fuels in many regions. They've barely mastered nuclear fission." Officer Park, the ship's senior science analyst, nodded in agreement. His elongated fingers glided over a series of controls, pulling up atmospheric readings and population statistics. The Council's preliminary assessment was correct, Park confirmed. Earth qualifies as a Category 4 undeveloped planet according to all established metrics. They've launched a few crude satellites and sent basic probes to neighboring planets, but they have no knowledge of hyperdrive technology or quantum communications. Kim smiled thinly. "Perfect for our purposes." Around the bridge, other officers continued their work, occasionally glancing at the planet with expressions of mild amusement or disdain. To them, finding Earth was like advanced humans discovering an anthill. Interesting perhaps from a scientific perspective, but otherwise insignificant. "What about their defensive capabilities?" Kim asked. Officer Yu, head of military assessment, pulled up a new display showing Earth's military installations. Primitive nuclear weapons, chemically propelled aircraft, and basic ballistic missile technology, Yu reported confidently. "Nothing that could penetrate our shields or even detect our presence while we remain cloaked. Their most advanced weapon systems would be considered children's toys by Council standards." Kim nodded, satisfied. "Prepare the initial planetary assessment for High Commander Lee. Recommend immediate approval for resource extraction operations. The mineral deposits in their Arctic regions alone would supply our manufacturing needs for decades." "What about the indigenous population?" asked Officer Sun, the youngest member of the bridge crew. Kim raised an eyebrow ridge, surprised by the question. "What about them?" "Shouldn't we establish contact first? The Council regulations suggest." "The regulations apply to species meeting minimum development thresholds," Kim interrupted. "These humans aren't even close. They're still fighting among themselves over primitive religious beliefs and artificial territorial boundaries." Officer Park added, "They will never detect our mining operations if we establish them in remote regions. The Council has approved similar operations on 12 other inhabited worlds with no complications." Sun looked uncomfortable but didn't argue further. "Send the assessment to High Commander Lee," Kim ordered. "Recommend immediate resource extraction approval with minimal observation protocols. We can begin operations within 30 days of receiving authorization." Unknown to the alien vessel hovering silently above on the dark side of Earth's moon, a small automated station detected their arrival. Built decades ago by a secret international coalition, the station's quantum sensors were specifically designed to detect the energy signatures of advanced propulsion systems. Deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, in a facility unknown to the general population of Earth, red warning lights began flashing in a control room carved from the ancient ice. "Doctor?" Han looked up from her computer terminal, her expression shifting from surprise to grim satisfaction as she recognized the alert pattern. "They're here," she whispered to herself. Han had spent 20 years in this underground complex, analyzing artifacts recovered from around the world, objects that defied conventional scientific understanding and suggested humanity was not alone in the universe. More importantly, These artifacts hinted that humans might have a connection to something much greater than themselves. She reached for a secure communication device and entered a series of codes from memory. When the connection established, she spoke clearly and calmly. "Director Choi? The visitors we've been expecting have finally arrived. Initial readings match the energy signatures predicted by the archives." The voice that responded sounded tired, but alert. "Location? Holding position beyond lunar orbit. They're observing, just as the founder said they would." "How many ships?" "Just one. Appears to be a scout vessel, probably conducting preliminary assessment." There was a pause before Director Choi responded. "Activate Protocol Homecoming. I'll inform the other site directors." Han ended the transmission and turned to a wall safe hidden behind an ordinary-looking panel. Using both a key and her handprint, she opened it to reveal a small metal cube covered in swirling patterns that seemed to move under her gaze. "All these years waiting," she said quietly, as she placed the cube into a matching receptacle on her console. "Now we'll see if the founders were right about everything else too." As the cube activated, sending signals to similar devices hidden around the world, Captain Kim and his crew continued their scans of Earth, completely unaware that the seemingly primitive humans they were studying had been preparing for this moment for generations. 3 days had passed since the alien ship's arrival, and now a smaller scout vessel hovered invisibly above New York City. Inside, Officer Park adjusted the ship's sensors to capture the city's communications networks, his long fingers dancing across the control panel with practiced ease. "Their information systems are completely open," Park said, unable to hide his amusement. "No quantum encryption, no neural safeguards, just simple binary code transmitted through the air and primitive fiber cables." Captain Kim stood behind him, watching as thousands of human communications flowed across their screens. Phone calls, text messages, internet traffic, television broadcasts, all captured and translated instantly by the ship's advanced systems. "Have you found anything worth reporting?" Kim asked, stifling a yawn. This assignment was becoming tedious. "Nothing of significance," Park replied, "though their entertainment programs are somewhat interesting from an anthropological perspective." He gestured toward a screen showing a military action movie. "They glorify violence and primitive combat. This appears to be fictional, but it reflects their actual military strategies." Kim snorted. "Forward relevant samples to cultural analyst. June. The council likes to include these details in their assessment reports." In another section of the ship, Officer Yu studied Earth's military capabilities with growing disdain. He watched footage of tank exercises, fighter jet formations, and naval vessels that humans considered impressive. "Their most advanced aircraft can't even achieve escape velocity efficiently," Yu remarked to his assistant, "and their ocean vessels rely on nuclear fission to power systems that would fit in our personal transport pods." The assistant nodded, adding notes to the official report. "Should we include their space program assessment?" "Barely worth mentioning," Yu said dismissively. "They've sent a few humans to their moon using chemical rockets, technology we abandoned 10,000 years ago. Their planetary exploration consists of simple probes that would take lifetimes to reach even nearby star systems." Meanwhile, Officer Sun had been tasked with studying human scientific advancement. Unlike his colleagues, he found himself occasionally impressed. "They've actually developed a crude understanding of quantum mechanics," he mentioned as Kim passed by his station. "And their theoretical physics isn't completely misguided." Kim paused. "Are you suggesting they're close to a breakthrough?" "No, not close," Sun clarified quickly. "But they're on a correct path in some areas. Given another century or two, which they won't have once we begin resource extraction," Kim interrupted, "the Council will appreciate your thoroughness. But don't waste too much time. We need to complete our assessment within their week." On the main deck, cultural analyst June had assembled a presentation of human artistic and cultural achievements. As council representatives gathered to view it, many struggled to contain their laughter. "Their music relies on simple patterns of sound waves," June explained, playing examples that ranged from classical symphonies to pop music. Most of it follows predictable mathematical formulas that they find pleasing. The aliens listened with expressions that ranged from confusion to amusement. And their visual art? Asked a council member. June displayed images of famous paintings and sculptures, primitive representations of their reality, though some attempt to express emotional states through color and form. Nothing approaching the neural stimulating art forms we developed millennia ago. Their literature? Another asked. Simplistic narratives mostly concerned with their brief lives and limited experiences. Though I found their science fiction category interesting, they imagine contact with advanced civilizations, but always portray themselves as either victims or surprising victors. June smiled. Clearly wishful thinking. The presentation continued, with each aspect of human civilization dissected and found wanting. By the end, the council representatives were convinced humans were an evolutionary dead-end species not worth diplomatic contact, only useful for the resources their planet held. What the aliens couldn't know was that 50 meters beneath the streets of New York, in a bunker shielded by technologies not developed on Earth, a team of human scientists tracked the invisible alien vessel with perfect precision. "They're doing exactly what we expected," said a technician, watching as specialized equipment mapped the alien ship's movements. Standard Galactic Council First Contact Protocol. Observe without revealing presence, assess technological level, catalog resources. Director Choi nodded, her weathered face revealing nothing as she studied the data. She dedicated her life to this moment, following instructions left by those they now called the Founders. "They've moved to Phase 2 faster than predicted," she noted. "They must be eager to begin mining operations." Across the globe, similar hidden facilities monitored the aliens. In the Gobi Desert, beneath Mount Fuji, under the Amazon rainforest, humanity had prepared for this moment in secret for generations. In the Antarctic base, Dr. Han stood before a group of world leaders who had been quietly brought to the facility once the alien presence was confirmed. "For decades, you've funded our work while keeping the public unaware," Han said, addressing the solemn-faced presidents and prime ministers. "Now you'll understand why." She pressed her palm against a wall panel and the room's lights dimmed. A section of floor slid away, revealing a chamber below. The leaders gasped as they saw what lay beneath. A spacecraft of impossible design, its surface covered in the same swirling patterns as the cube Han had activated days earlier. "This vessel was discovered buried under Antarctic ice in 1952, Han explained. "Carbon dating suggests it's been there for approximately 50,000 years. We've studied it in secret, and what we've learned has guided human technological development behind the scenes for decades." "You're saying we've had alien technology all this time?" asked one of the leaders. "Not alien," Han corrected. "The DNA samples recovered from inside match human genetic markers perfectly. This ship belonged to our ancestors, humans who mastered space travel long before recorded history, then disappeared." Director Choi's voice came through a communication screen. "The visitors above us now are not the first to find Earth, but they will be the first to discover who really owns it." Above, Captain Kim prepared his final report to the Galactic Council, completely unaware that the primitive humans he mocked were anything but primitive, and that Earth itself held secrets that would soon shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The morning sun cast long shadows across the New Mexico desert as Captain Kim's diplomatic craft descended from the clouds. The small vessel, designed to impress primitive species with its sleek lines and silent operation, touched down on the sand, sending dust swirling in all directions. For the first time in recorded Galactic Council history, official contact would be made with the inhabitants of the planet, designated Earth. Kim adjusted his translator device and straightened his ceremonial uniform. The council had approved his recommendation for resource extraction, but insisted on following minimal contact protocols, a brief introduction to planetary leadership, explanation of the council's authority, and presentation of the standard resource sharing agreement that would give humans 5% of their planet's extracted wealth. "Remember," Kim instructed his small team, "these humans have no concept of galactic civilization. They will be overwhelmed by our technology and presence. Expect confusion, possibly fear. Our psychological profiles suggest they may become emotional." "Officer," Park nodded, checking his data tablet one final time. The location is strange, though. Why would they choose an empty desert for first contact? Their governmental centers are elsewhere. Probably fear of public panic, Kim replied dismissively. Let's proceed. I want to complete this formality and begin survey operations by tomorrow. The craft's door slid open, and the ramp extended, to touch the desert floor. Kim led his team out into the bright sunlight, expecting to find a group of nervous human officials cowering in the presence of beings from beyond their world. Instead, 5 humans stood calmly waiting, arranged in a neat semicircle, wearing simple dark suits that showed no sign of rank or authority. They showed neither fear nor surprise, which immediately struck Kim as unusual. A woman stepped forward, middle-aged by human standards, with streaks of gray in her dark hair. Her posture and confident expression suggested leadership. Welcome to Earth, she said clearly. Kim's translator device remained silent. The woman had greeted them in perfect galactic standard, the common language of the 12 species that made up the council. This was impossible. No human should know this language. You speak our language, Kim stammered, momentarily losing his diplomatic composure. The woman smiled slightly. We've been expecting representatives from the Galactic Council for some time, Captain Kim. I am Dr. Han, Chief Xenobiologist of the Stellar Defense Initiative. Park stepped forward, his expression hardening. How do you know the captain's name? How do you know our language? Your species has no contact with galactic civilization. That's not entirely accurate, replied Dr. Han. But perhaps you should see for yourselves. We've prepared something that might answer your questions. She gestured toward what appeared to be an ordinary rock formation behind them. As the aliens watched, a section of stone slid silently aside, revealing a tunnel leading deep underground. Please follow me, Han said, turning toward the opening. Kim hesitated, then nodded to his team. Council protocols dictated maintaining diplomatic engagement unless threatened. So far, these humans had shown no hostility, only impossible knowledge. The way. Tunnel sloped gently downward, illuminated by lights embedded in the ceiling. After walking for several minutes, they emerged into a vast underground chamber that made the aliens freeze in astonishment. The space stretched for hundreds of meters in all directions, filled with technology that should not exist on Earth. Holographic displays showed star maps of regions beyond human exploration capability. Sleek devices hummed with power sources unknown to Earth science. Humans in lab coats moved purposefully among workstations, many pausing to glance at the alien visitors. This facility was established in 1947, Han explained as she led them forward. Initially to study unusual artifacts discovered around the world. Later, its purpose evolved. This technology, Park whispered, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. Some of this resembles council designs, but other elements are... I don't recognize them at all. That's not surprising, came a new voice. An older man approached from across the chamber. His face was weathered by age, but his eyes were sharp and alert. I'm Director Choi, he said. Welcome to Earth's Stellar Defense Initiative. You're probably wondering how primitive humans like us could possibly have technology that surprises even you. Kim struggled to regain his diplomatic bearing. Your technological level exceeds our assessment significantly. We will need to revise. You came here to claim our world, Choi interrupted. To extract our resources after determining we were too primitive to be worth proper diplomatic relations. His tone wasn't angry, simply matter of fact. Kim felt a chill. These humans shouldn't know the Council's intentions. Let me show you something else, Choi continued, leading them toward a circular platform in the center of the chamber. The platform illuminated as they approached. Above it appeared a holographic display of DNA strands rotating slowly in comparison. The strand on the left is human DNA, Han explained. The strand on the right was recovered from biological material found in an ancient vessel discovered beneath Antarctic ice in 1952. Park stepped forward, his scientific training taking over. These strands are nearly identical, but that's impossible? Choi finished for him. Only if you believe humans evolved solely on Earth. Kim stared at the display, his world tilting. You're suggesting Earth isn't just another world for your mining operations, Captain, Choi said quietly. It's the homeworld of those you call the Founders. The aliens visibly recoiled. Every child in the Council civilization learned about the Founders, the mysterious first species that had allegedly seeded the stars with life and technology before vanishing 50,000 years ago. The Founders were almost mythological figures, known only through fragmented artifacts and ancient records. That's absurd, Kim said finally. The Founders were an advanced species that Han interrupted by pressing a small device in her hand. The chamber's lights dimmed and new holographic images appeared. Ancient stone tablets covered in swirling symbols identical to those used in the oldest council records. These were found on every continent, Han explained. Dating to approximately 50,000 years ago, exactly when your records show the Founders disappeared, more images appeared. Megalithic structures from around Earth, submerged ruins beneath oceans, and finally, the vessel found in Antarctica, a ship whose design made Kim's team gasp in recognition. That's a Founder vessel, Park whispered. We've only found fragments before. We have 3 intact ships, Choi said, along with data archives that have taken us generations to partially decode. He gestured to a final holographic display, showing a star map with Earth at its center, lines radiating outward to dozens of worlds, including the 12 Council homeworlds. Earth isn't just another primitive planet, Han said softly. It's the birthplace of everything you know. You came to mock us and take what you wanted, but you've actually come home, to the world your ancestors left behind long ago. Kim stood speechless, his mind racing to process implications that would shake galactic civilization to its core. Everything the Council believed about its history and place in the cosmos had just crumbled before his eyes. We have much to discuss, Choi said into the silence, starting with why your mining operation will not be proceeding. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with agitated voices as High Commander Lee pounded his 6-fingered hand against the polished stone table. Holograms flickered around him, showing the evidence transmitted from Earth, DNA comparisons, ancient artifacts, and most disturbing of all, the intact Founder vessels discovered by humans. Preposterous lies, Lee roared, his silver eyes flashing with anger. These humans have fabricated everything. They've somehow stolen our historical records and created an elaborate hoax. The 12 senior representatives of the Council species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Unlike Lee, they had studied the evidence more carefully, and disturbing questions had begun to form in their minds. The DNA evidence appears genuine, said Representative Gill, the Council's chief scientist. Our preliminary analysis confirms They could have manipulated the samples, Lee insisted. These humans are clearly more cunning than our initial assessment suggested. Captain Kim stood at the edge of the chamber, watching the debate with growing unease. After his encounter in the underground facility, he had transmitted everything to the Council as required by protocol. But he had also included his personal assessment that the humans appeared to be telling the truth. What about the Founder vessel? Asked another representative. Our scans confirm it predates human civilization by tens of thousands of years, yet it contains human biological material. Lee's expression darkened. A clever deception, nothing more. For what purpose? Kim dared to ask. What would humans gain by creating such an elaborate fiction? To protect their resources, Lee snapped. To prevent us from establishing mining operations. They've clearly monitored our communications and created this fantasy to manipulate us. The chamber fell silent as Lee activated a new holographic display showing a massive fleet of warships moving into formation. I have ordered our invasion fleet to mobilize, he announced. 1,000 warships will surround Earth within their day. We will take what we need by force and expose this human deception. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. An invasion? Violates our protocols, Representative Gill protested. We have no evidence these humans pose any threat. They claim to be Founders, Lee shouted. They defile our most sacred historical records with their lies. Either they submit to immediate resource extraction, or we will take their world by force. On Earth, Director Choi stood in the control center beneath Mount Fuji, surrounded by bank after bank of monitoring systems. The screens showed the Council fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 1,000 warships bristling with weapons that could reduce Earth's surface to molten slag. "They're not responding to our communications," reported a technician. "All channels blocked." Dr. Han stood beside Choi, her face grim. So much for diplomatic resolution. "They leave us no choice," Choi said quietly. "Activate the Soul Defense Network." The words hung in the air, the authorization they had trained for but hoped never to give. Every person in the control room understood the magnitude of what would follow. Han moved to a specialized console, her hands trembling slightly as she pressed her palm against an ancient scanner. The device hummed, reading not just her fingerprints but the specific genetic markers that connected her to those who had left the defense system behind. "Authorization confirmed," announced an artificial voice that sounded older than human civilization itself. "Soul Defense Network initiating. Warning, full activation will reveal Earth's status to all galactic quadrants." "Proceed," Choi commanded. Han took a deep breath and pressed the final confirmation key. Activation sequence initiated. Throughout the solar system, structures hidden for 50 millennia began to awaken. Deep inside Mercury, ancient machinery stirred to life. On Venus, devices buried beneath the crushing atmosphere powered up. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. On every planet and many moons, long-dormant technology began to pulse with energy. Even on Earth itself, hidden installations activated in the ocean depths, beneath mountain ranges, and under the polar ice caps. Lee stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching with satisfaction as Earth grew larger on the viewscreen. His fleet had arranged itself in attack formation, ready to overwhelm any resistance the primitive planet might offer. "Begin targeting sequence," he ordered. "Priority on their military installations and government centers." "Sir," a nervous officer interrupted, "we're detecting unusual energy readings throughout the solar system." "Explain," Lee demanded. "Unknown technology activating on multiple planets and moons. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database." Before Lee could respond, golden light erupted from planets throughout the system. Beams of energy, not destructive but somehow solid, reached out toward each Council vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," Lee shouted. But the ships couldn't move. Each vessel found itself encased in a cocoon of golden energy, frozen in space as if time itself had stopped for everything except the living beings aboard. On Lee's flagship, screens flickered and died, replaced by a single image, the face of Director Choi. "This is Earth's only warning," Choi said calmly. "The Soul Defense Network has neutralized your fleet. Your weapons are disabled. Your engines are offline. Your ships are held in stasis fields that cannot be broken by any technology known to the Council." Lee's face contorted with rage. "This is impossible. No planetary civilization has this capability." "The Founders did," Choi replied simply. "When they left Earth 50,000 years ago, they seeded the stars with life and technology. But they also left safeguards to protect their homeworld, should they ever need to return." "You expect us to believe humans are founders?" Lee scoffed, though his voice carried a new undercurrent of fear. "We don't need you to believe anything," Choi answered. "The evidence is holding your fleet immobile. Your ships will remain exactly where they are until we decide otherwise." Captain Kim stepped into view beside Choi. Several Council representatives gasped to see him standing with the humans. "High Commander," Kim said formally, "I defected to Earth after verifying their claims independently. The evidence is irrefutable. Earth is the founder homeworld." Lee's eyes widened in shock. "Traitor." "No," Kim replied calmly. "I'm fulfilling our most sacred directive, to honor the founders if they were ever found. The Council has always claimed it would kneel before the founders if they returned. Now we face that very test." Throughout the fleet, crews stared in disbelief at their useless controls. The mighty warships hung motionless around Earth, their fearsome weapons rendered as harmless as children's toys. In the Antarctic facility, Dr. Han stood before the most intact of the Founder vessels, its surface glowing with the same golden energy that now held the invasion fleet captive. "The awakening protocol is complete," she said into a communication device. "The network will hold them indefinitely." Back in the Mount Fuji Control Center, Choi nodded and addressed Lee one final time. "Your fleet will be released and allowed to return home carrying the truth about Earth. You will deliver our terms to the Council. Earth takes its rightful place as a founding member with full rights and protections. All plans for resource extraction end immediately." Lee's face had turned ashen. "And if we refuse?" Choi's expression remained calm, but his eyes hardened. "Then your ships remain where they are as a monument and warning. The choice is yours." The silence that followed told humanity everything they needed to know about the decision the Council would make. Sunlight streamed through the towering crystal windows of the Galactic Council chamber, casting rainbow patterns across the gathered delegates. For the first time in recorded history, representatives from all 12 member species stood as humans entered the sacred hall. The massive doors, etched with the ancient symbols of the Founders, swung open to reveal Director Choi and Dr. Han, dressed in simple black uniforms, adorned only with a small Earth emblem. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation in Earth's solar system. 3 weeks of frantic diplomacy, of Council scientists verifying human claims, of galactic civilization coming to terms with a truth that rewrote their understanding of history. "Representatives of Earth," announced the Council speaker, her voice echoing through the silent chamber, "you stand in the Hall of Harmony, built 10,000 years ago to honor those who seeded the stars with life. Never did we imagine descendants of the Founders themselves would walk these halls." Director Choi moved forward with measured steps, his face betraying no emotion despite the magnitude of the moment. Behind him, Dr. Han carried a small metallic case, the contents of which had been the subject of intense speculation throughout the Council worlds. "We come not to claim authority," Choi began, his voice strong despite his age, "but to restore balance." He gestured toward the walls, where detailed murals depicted the mythical Founders bringing life to barren worlds. "Our ancestors seeded the stars, then returned to Earth, wiping their memories to start anew." A murmur passed through the assembled delegates. The evidence was now irrefutable. Earth held technology beyond even the Council's understanding, and human DNA contained marker sequences found only in fragmentary Founder remains. "Why?" asked Representative Gill, voicing the question that had consumed the Council for weeks. "Why would beings of such power choose to forget themselves?" Dr. Han stepped forward. "We've translated only portions of the archives left behind, but they speak of a great weariness, a civilization that had reached its peak and found the view disappointing." She paused, looking around at the alien faces. "They chose to begin again, hoping to rediscover the universe with fresh eyes and perhaps find a different path." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Founders had not been destroyed or disappeared to another dimension as Council legends suggested. They had chosen to restart their civilization, preserving their knowledge but hiding it from themselves. Captain Kim, now Earth's advocate after witnessing the truth firsthand, moved to stand beside Choi. His defection had shocked the Council, but lent crucial credibility to human claims. "What do humans intend now?" asked High Commander Lee, his once commanding voice now subdued. The humiliation of having his fleet frozen in space had cost him much of his authority, but tradition kept him in his position for now. "Humanity doesn't seek to rule," Choi replied. "We have only begun to understand our own heritage. We wish to remember what our ancestors forgot, how to live in harmony with all sentient beings." At a nod from Choi, Dr. Han opened the metallic case she carried. Inside lay an ancient tablet covered in swirling script, the Charter of Worlds, thought, lost for millennia, the original document upon which the Council had based its governing principles. Officer June, now serving as a human advisor, stepped forward to translate. "The charter is clear," he said, his finger tracing the ancient symbols. "All worlds, Seated by the founders remain under founder protection. None may claim sovereignty over another without mutual consent. The implications were unmistakable. The Council's practice of classifying primitive worlds for resource extraction violated the very charter they claimed to uphold. Representative Gill asked the question many were thinking, how many other worlds have humans found with your special connection? 17 so far, Han replied. Worlds where developing civilizations are unaware of their heritage, just as we were until recently. The archives contain coordinates for nearly 100 more. The delegates exchanged worried glances. The galactic power balance had shifted overnight. What are your demands? Lee asked bluntly. Choi shook his head. Not demands. Proposals. Earth will join the Council as a founding member with full rights. The practice of non-consensual resource extraction ends immediately. And together, we will establish contact with other founder-seeded worlds, bringing them gradually into our community. And if the Council refuses? Lee challenged, though the question sounded hollow. Choi's expression remained calm. The Sol Defense Network demonstrated only a fraction of the technology left in our care. We prefer cooperation, but Earth will never again be vulnerable. Representative Gill stood, her age-spotted hand raised for attention. I propose we accept Earth's terms without delay. Our own records confirm they are rightful heirs to the founder, legacy. More importantly, she added with unexpected emotion, they show remarkable restraint for a species that could have demanded our submission. One by one, the Council representatives signaled their agreement, some eagerly, others with reluctance, but all recognizing the new reality. As the formal declarations were recorded, Dr. Han stepped to a window overlooking the Council homeworld's capital city. Millions of citizens had gathered in the streets below, watching the historic proceedings on massive view screens. Many held signs with the Earth symbol hastily painted on them. They're celebrating, she remarked with surprise. Many find hope. In your arrival, Captain Kim explained, joining her at the window. The Council has grown rigid, hierarchical. Your presence forces change many have wanted for centuries. Han nodded thoughtfully. Change is what our ancestors sought when they returned to Earth. Perhaps this is the path they hoped we would find. Outside the chamber, scientists from across the galaxy waited impatiently to begin working with their human counterparts. The technology emerging from Earth promised advances in medicine, energy, and space travel beyond anything imagined possible. In the viewing gallery, Officer Sun watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. Unlike many of his colleagues, he had recognized something special in humans from the beginning, a creativity and resilience that suggested they might be more than they appeared. As the formal ceremony concluded, Choi addressed the Council one final time. Today marks not an ending but a beginning. Earth doesn't wish to simply take its place in the stars. We wish to help build a galaxy where all worlds determine their own destiny. He gestured toward the ancient charter, its surface glowing softly in the chamber's light. Our ancestors left us a roadmap to a better future. Together, let us follow it not out of obligation to the past, but out of hope for what we might become. As the Council erupted in applause, Dr. Han allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had survived its first galactic test. Those who had mocked Earth now stood to honor it, not knowing that the greatest revelations about humanity's true nature still waited to be discovered in the archives beneath the Antarctic ice. The story had only just begun.